And welcome back. We're finally close to the release of the long-awaited Fuji X-H2 and X-H2s because we know they're going to be two cameras. Now, this is going to be the next big thing for Fuji because, in my opinion at least, these two cameras are going to define how the future is going to look like when it comes to the Fuji X system. If they make this right, they're going to have a bright future. If they make these wrong, there's clouds on the horizon because the competition is fierce and there's no room for mistake. So let's start from what we know about this camera. Now, let me thank Patrick at Fuji Rumors for the incredible work that he's been doing for the last, I don't know, 10 years. I don't know. Patrick, let me know. Because he's been doing an incredible job releasing rumors, and usually those rumors are very accurate, and I can base my video off of the rumors that is pushed out. There's one request, Patrick. If you can stop the rumors for a couple of days just for this video to be somewhat up to date for at least a couple of days, that would be great. I know you won't be doing that, but I needed to ask. So let's get back to what we know about these cameras. We know that we're gonna have two cameras, the X-H2 and the X-H2s with two different sensors. One camera will have a 26 megapixel BSI stacked sensor. This is going to be the H2s, while the other one is going to have a 40 megapixel sensor, and it's going to be called the X-H2. At least one of the camera is going to be released at the end of May, and we also know that the X-H2 is going to have 8K video recording, and the X-H2s is going to have 6K video recording. And we also know that at least one of the cameras is going to be less than $2,500. More on that in a second. There will also be two different battery grip options. I am not a battery grip type of guy, so I won't focus on that too much. It's not my cup of tea, so I'll let others to discuss about that. And both cameras will have compatibility with both CF Express and SD cards, which was to be expected because when you're recording 8K or 6K, you need more bandwidth when it comes to your memory. So it had to be like that. And latest rumor is that we're going to have animal and object tracking, and this is huge, but we're going to talk about it in a second. It is fair to assume that they will both share the same IBIS, autofocus system, processor, and all of that. And I would also say that we're going to share the same body and viewfinder and screen. So in general, we know they're going to have two sister cameras. And I was ready to bet, before the rumors of the 6K came out, I was ready to bet that the 26 megapixel X-H2s was going to be the less video-oriented camera, and I was kind of giving it for granted that this would have shot 4K at 60 frames per second a la X-T4, but no more than that, because I was assuming the very video-centric camera was going to be the X-H2. But now, knowing that even the X-H2s is going to shoot 6K, I think Fuji went for another direction. Instead of having a more video-centric and a more photo-centric camera, or the fast camera and the slow camera for a studio and all of that, Fuji decided to just focus on the same market and try to own that market with two different trims of offer. One being the 26 megapixel 6K camera, which is going to be basically the mass production camera, and one higher megapixel, higher resolution video camera for a smaller niche market. They will both be, at this point, I'm assuming they will both be hybrid cameras, 100% hybrid, so none of them is going to be more focused on video or photos than the other. And the only separation between them is going to be basically the resolution gap. This brings us to the price, because we know the headline was that the X-H2 was going to shoot 8K and it was going to be sold at less than $2,500. Now, knowing that there are two cameras, I have a different opinion on that. Because for as much as I would love that the X-H2 is going to be sold at less than $2,500, I'm assuming that the $2,500 camera is going to be the X-H2s, while the X-H2 is going to be sold at a higher price, above $3,000, between $3,000 and $3,500. And let me explain you why. As of today, the cheapest mirrorless camera that's shooting 8K is the Canon R5, and that camera is currently sold at $4,500 or thereabout. That means that if Fuji was going to sell the X-H2 with 8K and at just $2,500, that would mean undercutting the competition for about half the price with kind of the same specs. We don't know raw recording about the Fujis, but basically it will be the same specs at half the price. And I don't think that is currently possible today. I think it's more realistic to think that a 6K camera that shoots 26 megapixel photos and it's got all of the bells and whistles of the bigger brother is going to be sold at $2,500, and then the 40 megapixel 8K camera is going to be sold at a really higher price, although undercutting the competition anyways. However, if I'm wrong, and I really hope I'm wrong, meaning that the X-H2 8K for 40 megapixel camera is going to be sold at less than $2,500, this means that the X-H2s is going to be a huge value for the money, because that camera has to be sold less than 2,000 euros or dollars, and that means an incredible value for your money. Now let's focus on the body and design. We already seen a couple of leaked pictures, and those tell us already something. In my opinion, I expect something very similar to the X-H1 when it comes to the body language of the camera. So bigger grip, bigger camera in general, a very solid camera with physical grips and controls that we all know. But I expect the still video record option that they introduced on the X-T4 to stay, because that is incredibly important. And I also expect a full-size HDMI, a headphone jack, and a bigger, better joystick that we already seen in the leaked pictures. We've already seen that there's a bigger joystick, and it's placed right on. It's a little bit higher than usual. We'll see if that works or not. I don't know. And also, I expect. We also know that they will keep the D-pad, because the leaked pictures show us the D-pad. What I don't know, I haven't understand completely, is that if the flippy screen, which is going to be flippy, we didn't have any doubt on that. If it's going to be something similar to the Panasonic S1H or similar, or more similar to the X-T4. From the pictures that we've seen, it looks like it's going to be more on the X-T4 kind of things. So I'm kind of a bit disappointed, but I want to see the final product before talking about it. But that's what it is. We've seen that from the side that the connections on the left side are differently placed. It looks like there's two different slots, one more towards the front of the camera, one more towards the back of the camera, and one seems to be on the lower side. So it looks like there's more connection, but we don't know. One thing that I would keep compared to the X-T4 is that the shutter. The shutter is super good. It's super silent. It's very reliable. It goes 15 frames per second, which is basically what you're gonna need when it comes to frames per second on a mechanical shutter. I would only add the possibility of closing the shutter when you change lenses, but that needs to be done very quickly. You don't have to wait a long time, otherwise it's going to be purposeless. But that would be a nice addition. One really important thing is the weight, because the X-T4 is already on the heavy side. I would love for these cameras not to be super heavy. One minor concern that I have is the battery, because it would make sense that they would keep the new battery that they basically launched with the X-T4 in the new generation of cameras. Although my concern is that despite the battery being good enough on the X-T4, it is also nothing to write home about. I mean, it's good, but it doesn't make you scream like a miracle or something like that. And assuming that these new cameras are going to be way more power hungry, my concern is that the battery, if they keep the current one, may be a little bit undersized for these cameras. We'll see. And I don't really know whether to hope for a brand new battery, meaning that we're going to have a lot of different batteries in the Fuji system, or that they keep the current one and they make some magic in the electronic to have less power consumption. We'll see. Now, these two cameras must have a couple of things that are gonna make or break the deal. And I'm starting from the X-T4. I'm assuming that they're not gonna make anything less than what the X-T4 can do. But I already spoke about it a lot of times. The most important thing is a better continuous autofocus tracking in both video and stills. We know from the latest rumors that we're going to have object and animal tracking, which seems to tell us that they have worked on the continuous autofocusing system, but we don't need just a bunch of specs. We need that system to be reliable. It needs to be, I'm not saying better than the competition. I would be more than happy if it's comparable to what Sony or Canon can do, or even Nikon, the last iteration of Nikon cameras. But it has to be that good, and the interface needs to be a little bit more easy to understand when it comes to selecting what to track. That is the most important thing. If they don't nail this, they're gonna fail, because the camera is already, the X-T4 is already a good camera. If you don't work on its main flaw, then the next camera is basically pointless. A better video stabilization, I don't expect something like the GH6, but I expect something close to that, at least better than what Sony does and probably better than what Canon does. I don't know Nikon too much, so I won't speak about Nikon. There has to be no recording limits, because this is a long overdue thing. It should have already happened with the X-T4. There has to be no overheating issues, or reasonable overheating issues. We don't want the Canon R5 gate at launch. That is the worst marketing you can get. We don't need specs and then the camera cannot keep up, especially knowing that the camera doesn't have any ventilation system. So it has to be perfectly designed to withstand that. We also need, and I already mentioned that, no cheating of specs. What I mean is, if it's 6K, it needs to be 6K full sensor readout. I don't expect more than 30 FPS at the highest resolution, but we'll see. And the same thing goes for the 8K. We need the full sensor readout. Otherwise, I mean, 8K on a cropped sensor, it doesn't make that much sense. And numbers wouldn't match, because basically it's already telling us that it's 40 megapixel is full sensor readout to get the 4K. Same thing goes for 6K and 26 megapixel. We also need, from a photographic standpoint, a very high-speed capable buffer. We don't need the camera to slow down if you're shooting bursts. This is important, especially if the cameras are adding very good focus tracking and all of that, because this is going to make or break the deal for some users. And as I already mentioned, full-size HDMI, headphone jack, and a better solution for how the doors on the left work. These are things that have to happen. Now, there are things that don't necessarily have to be there, but I would love to be there. That would be nice to have. The first thing for me would be higher resolution sensor shift mode, because once you have IBIS, it kind of comes natural to think that you're going to have something that can help you moving the sensor around with taking 16 pictures and getting a higher resolution file. Other cameras do that. I would expect Fuji to come up with something like that. I was on the verge of putting this between the must-have and the should-have. I decided for the should-have, but to me it's really, really important. Of course, your mileage may vary, so we'll see. I improved ISO performance is also important. I think this is easier on the lower megapixel count. Of course, I'd say it's more complicated on the 40 megapixel camera. But if at worst, I would hope that the 40 megapixel camera does similar to the X-T4, and the 26 megapixel camera is going to do a little bit better. And a dual native ISO sensor would be perfect, especially when it comes to video, but also for picture. I would also love to see 422 10-bit internal recording. I don't know yet about RAW, but at least 422 10-bit internal has to happen. Not has to happen, but would be nice to happen, just to keep improving what the camera can do. Of course, H.265. I'll also expect 4K 120 frames per second. The weight, as I mentioned, should not be more than what the X-T4 already is, because it's already going towards the heavy side of cameras, especially considering it's an APS-C camera compared to full frame cameras that are way better compared to the X-T4. The A1 and the R5, they both weigh below 740 grams. The X-H2 cannot be heavier than that. It doesn't have to be heavier than that. Otherwise, we're gonna throw in away one of the advantages of having an APS-C body. Of course, lenses is another story. But if the body counterweights what the lenses do, I don't think it's a good idea. Let's just put it this way. A better viewfinder and a better screen are another important thing. Not because the X-T4 is bad, but this is your brand new flagship camera. You want to improve everything, including that. So compared to the X-T4, I expect a little bit of an improvement. Also, an improved battery life. Now, we discussed that already. To get a better battery life, they need to work some magic with the electronic and keep the current one, or just jump to a brand new one. I know it would suck for some, but probably this is the best solution. We'll see what they decide. The potential for having internal ND filters, that would be perfect for video shooters, although this is a little bit less likely than all the rest, but we'll see. Hoping is for free. And one thing that in my opinion is long overdue is the possibility of having a time-lapse being generated as a video already in camera, rather than having to do it in post at home. That would be a great help for those who want to share something immediately through the app. It would be perfect. This to me has to happen. It's almost a must-have. Now, in conclusion, as I already said in my one-year review of the X-T4, I am eagerly waiting for this camera, because these cameras are going to define Fuji X system future for a long time. I really hope Fuji pushed their development to the best. They didn't save any money in the development, because if they nail these cameras, there's going to be a bright future for Fuji. If they don't nail those and they fail on something big, they're going to be clouds on the horizon. It's really how important these two cameras are. Fuji has no choice but to nail both of them, because competition, as I mentioned, is fierce. All of the competitors have raised the game. Fuji has to do it and cannot lag behind anybody. Personally, I am more interested in the lower megapixel camera because honestly, more than 26 megapixel, I don't need more than that. I already mentioned that in the X-T4. I'm stand by that. And also, I'm not saying never, but I will not shoot 8K now, nor 6K for that matters. So I don't need that high resolution video capabilities. Storage is not for free, and I'm not think about publishing anything more than 4K for a long time. As already touched before, the defining features for this camera are going to be how the continuous AF work, because that is the biggest of my complaint, and price. I would reasonably expect that the X-H2s is the one sold at $2,500 and the X-H2 is being sold like $1,000 more. But I hope to be wrong. If I'm wrong, this is gonna be a huge win on the price already. I guess that's it for today. I really thank you for sticking around, for subscribing, and if you haven't, just please do it, because my channel is slowly growing, and having something like a like or you to subscribe, it really helps my channel to grow. So thank you again. That's it for today. Ciao, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.